Marcus Rashford. What a personal story that boy has.
Marcus Rashford at the double. He couldn't have even dreamt that last night.
And that's my biggest fear for him. Somehow he's got to fall in love with football again.
Extreme worlds alone. Did you ever?
Can I put on record my thanks to Marcus Rashford?
Oh, he smashed it in! Well, after all the talk this week, Marcus Rashford misses.
Marcus has to change. He's not that good a player.
A player who doesn't train properly.
The going into training and working is down to you as a professional, whether you're at United or wherever it is.
The story of Marcus Rashford at Manchester United is one that has polarised United fans for years. On the one hand, an academy graduate with over 100 goals and 400 appearances, a symbol of what our great club truly stands for. On the other, a professional player who has existed in the shadows for the last couple of years, since signing the biggest contract of his career. Now, what makes a hometown hero, and how can they morph into a villain in the eyes of some? What happens when that story takes a turn down a path nobody expected? The truth is, we don't know the whole story about Rashford at United. We don't have the answers for how or why Rashford's smile has faded and his ability to score 30 goals with it. Maybe we never will. But what we do know needs to be discussed properly.
Hello everyone, I'm Marcus Rashford.
From the moment he burst onto the scene, Rashford was different. Not just another academy prospect, but, a beacon of hope for a club navigating turbulent times. He became United's youngest ever scorer in European competition, scored twice on his debut, a moment that will define a generation of United fans. But this story, of course, is more than his on-the-pitch ability. It's about dreams, about pressure, the weight of wearing a badge that means everything to millions. And the truth is that a lot has probably happened behind the scenes we don't know about. Ruben Amorim arrived at the club and his approach was different from previous managers. Where others had tried to protect Rashford publicly while dealing with issues privately, Amorim made it clear from day one that reputation counted for nothing if you didn't apply yourself at training. How do we know these issues are real and long-standing? Respected veteran journalist Andy Mitten recently revealed this.
Every previous manager has had issues with Marcus Rashford. They've told me in confidence going back years and years and years.
So not just isolated incidents then, and a pattern had emerged. Different managers, different systems, different eras, but similar concerns. Now at 27, Rashford's trophy cabinet is one most players would be proud of. 2 FA Cups, 2 League Cups, and Europa League. But expectations for Rashford's career have been much higher. And just when questions about his form and trajectory were beginning to surface, something unexpected happened, and the world changed. The world came to a halt in March 2020, thanks to COVID-19. While most of us were locked inside our houses watching Tiger King, Ted Lasso and normal people, Rashford's focus was elsewhere. The pandemic became his platform for change. It wasn't a calculated PR move, it was personal. Drawing from his own family's struggles, he understood intimately what it meant to rely on free school meals, and breakfast clubs, and food banks. And his campaign with Fair Share was revolutionary. It delivered over 21 million meals to children and families. He wrote an open letter to MPs challenging the government's decision not to provide free school meals during the summer holidays, and he said the system was not built for families like mine to succeed, regardless of how hard my mum worked. Yet after he fought these battles off the pitch, his struggles on it intensified. His form fell off a cliff under Solskjaer, and when Ralph Rangnick came in, Rashford lost his place to a teenage Anthony Elanga. Now Rashford did find a purple patch in Ten Hag's first season, and that reminded everyone of his potential. He seemed to be picking up form just before the mid-season World Cup in Qatar, and while he was there, he scored 3 goals in 5 appearances and made himself the 5th highest scorer at the tournament, with all 4 other players who finished above him playing in the final. And when he returned to Manchester, he was a player transformed. The hesitation was gone, the swagger was back. He was playing with the kind of freedom that he'd shown when he first announced himself to the world. And at the Camp Nou, Rashford showed exactly what he could be and what he was. Electric pace, clinical finishing, the kind of performance that had Barcelona interested in signing him. Then he signed a 350 grand a week contract, which became a big turning point. The timing couldn't really have been worse. No longer was Rashford, now just a promising homegrown talent, he was among the highest paid players in the Premier League, and with that came higher expectations, and the narrative began to shift. His fall off in form became harder and harder to understand, and people couldn't wait to stick the boot in.
We love knocking people down. Anybody who steps outside the football bubble and tries to do something different, we smash them down as quick as we can.
Even when they're trying to do good things.
When they're trying to feed kids. Oh no, we can't have that. Yeah. We can't have him getting involved in politics. Absolutely not.
Stick to football, mate.
That's it.
This was where things started to get a bit poisonous. Rashford became more than an athlete. He became a symbol in Britain's culture wars. For 5 years, he was a central figure in these culture wars, with the left and right wing using his activism as a battleground. And people who were never convinced about his ability now had something else to throw at him. That visibility came at a cost. And when his form began to drop and legitimate criticism emerged, the fan base began to split. Playing for Manchester United is a burden few can comprehend. Playing for United as a local lad That's an entirely different level of pressure. And Andy Mitten captured this perfectly through Noel Gallagher's quote about the Manchester mentality. If I go back to my local pub and buy everyone a drink, I'm a flash bastard. And if I don't, I'm a tight bastard. The definition of between a rock and a hard place. And playing for England at the time was far from a reprieve. It was out the frying pan and into the fire. That penalty miss at Wembley against Italy in the Euro 2020 final was followed by a barrage of racist abuse for Rashford, Sancho and Saka, who were 23, 21 and 19 respectively at the time. A sickening way to treat three lads who accepted the pressure in the most difficult of circumstances. And I personally will never forgive Gareth Southgate for exposing those lads to that situation, Rashford and Sancho, by bringing them on with minutes to go, having hardly kicked a ball all tournament. And all of it just increased the pressure on Rashford. But Rashford increased the pressure on himself as well. For him, every action started to be scrutinised. The New York trip became the perfect microcosm of Rashford's career. He was given a time off by the club and chose to travel to New York. This was a missed opportunity for him to go the extra mile and show his character to a new manager who had just arrived at the club. And it was a poor choice from Rashford. But technically he didn't do anything wrong, but it was a poor choice. The club also didn't do their job properly, and Amorim even admitted in a chat with Gary Neville that restrictions should have been made clear by the club. There was now momentum building around the idea that Rashford lacked professionalism. We'd all seen it on the pitch, a removed Rashford for so long, and we weren't too far removed from the Belfast controversy either, when Rashford was pictured going into a nightclub the night before he reported himself too ill for training. And for a lot of United fans, this Belfast incident was one where their opinions truly shifted on Rashford. These mistakes were becoming more than missteps. To some, they were betrayals of trust that started to fracture his relationship with the United fans who had previously defended him. And with the arrival of Amorim and his questioning of Rashford's desire, another very obvious question emerged. If you aren't motivated to play for your boyhood club on 350 grand a week, where are you going to be motivated?
Are you surprised at this?
I was surprised when this started over 2 years ago. I was surprised then, now I'm not. So I've spoke to Marcus a couple of times. I give him my thoughts, my opinion. I said, you need to leave the football club because whatever's going on in his life and whatever's going on at Manchester United, he's not the same, it's not him.
So with more and more fans growing tired of the world surrounding Rashford, and with the club now under new management both in the boardroom and on the training ground, Rashford has found himself being used to make a statement about the club's future. A casualty, if you want to call it that. A demonstration that no player is bigger than the institution. The club needed to show that they would no longer be a soft touch and that players could no longer hang around on big contracts without performing. Where once we had hoped that Rashford's immense talent would restore the club to former glories, he has now become a necessary casualty as Amorim attempts to truly set new standards that every player is held accountable to. Now in the goodness of time, I think we'll find out more about what happened with Rashford, what changed for Rashford behind the scenes. Because something happened. The smile was replaced with a frown. The puffed out chest was replaced by slumped shoulders, and a cloud sat firmly above Rashford's head, one that he was never ever going to be able to shake off unless he moved away from Manchester. But maybe, in our rush to make examples and send messages, we risk forgetting something important. Rashford did give United fans hope during dark periods. He papered over the cracks at a fading institution at times. He scored crucial goals against our biggest rivals. He fought for children's meals, and he represented something far bigger than himself. Most stories don't have happy endings. They are messy, complicated, beautiful and painful. And Rashford's story is no different. In fact, his story very much mirrors United's story over the last decade. A story of potential, insane pressure, moments of real hope, moments of heartbreak, and the unforgiving spotlight of modern football. You could argue that Rashford's story perfectly represents what's happened to Manchester United in these last 10 years. And as for United fans, some of us are happy to be rid of him finally. Some of us are sad to see it end this way. Some think that he and the club failed each other over the years. And some will see this as a great irony in the fact that he now plays for a team nicknamed the Villains. But life rarely fits into neat narratives. Heroes and villains mainly exist in stories, not in reality. And in the end, beneath the headlines, beyond the controversy, behind every decision and every mistake, it was always just a boy from Manchester. A boy who played through pain for his badge, who used his fame to fight for children, who reached highs few can imagine. And yes, who also made plenty of bad decisions along the way, whose application and attitude were fairly questioned as to whether he was acting professionally, and one who stumbled when the pressure became all too much at United. Not a villain, not a hero, just human.
Dirty places coming through, extreme worlds alone. Did you ever like it, Pam? I would stand in line for this.